This is Cammy, British Special Forces, and weighs 134 pounds. And this is Zangief, a quote colossal wrestler who weighs 399 pounds. Now, there's no way this could be pulled off in real life. Or could it? Hello everyone, and welcome to the newest episode of Crystal Crown, the channel that answers questions you never thought you had. And as you saw, I have a complicated love-hate relationship with fighting games. That's to say, I love them and they hate how my jaw is still connected to the rest of my body. I'm enamored with the inherent flashiness that comes with the highlights. I mean, love games like Balatro and Civ, but when I show a sick poker hand or a domination victory, it doesn't have the same raw kinetic energy as... Fighting games have evolved from their humble arcade origins into these characters that can weave beautiful tapestries of combos that are both exciting to watch and satisfying to pull off correctly. And at the core of most of these strings is the idea of the air juggle. Basically, it's just a character getting punched into the air by the opponent, where they're vulnerable to a large array of attacks that keep them stuck in the air, unable to protect from the world of hurt coming their way. And it got me thinking, if someone were to try and perform an air combo in real life, just how powerful would those punches have to be? What would be required if the average person wants to send their opponent flying, ready to be juggled, and would their own body be able to keep up? And that, my friends, is the question we plan to solve in today's episode. But before we get into it, I need you to destroy this car by punching that subscribe button. Nice job. So we have to understand what we're asking for when we say air juggle, since depending on the franchise, we get simple examples all the way to the flat out insane. To make it easy on myself, I went with this as the baseline. Average Man A picks a fight with Average Man B. Let's just say that one thought arena fighters were better than 2D ones. A uppercuts B to the point of launching him at a 45-degree angle, and as B starts to fall down, A hits him with a follow-up attack that keeps him stuck in the air. A then follows up with consecutive punches until satisfied. Now that we have our outline, we can see what we're dealing with here is actually a physics problem. If you ignore the whole humans getting lobbed in the air and juggled like the world's scariest clown act, the problem comes down to object has a starting position, gets hit with a certain amount of force at an angle, reacts to the hit as gravity pulls them back down, only to receive additional force while changing their direction, counteracting gravity. I should preface this by saying I haven't taken a physics class in about a decade, so I wasn't sure if my knowledge was enough to solve this problem. First, I managed to recruit some of my Twitch audience into helping me. Tristan Gold TV. Shout out Lavi, our aspiring astrophysicist, who started me off on the right track, as without them, I'd still be trying to figure out what velocity squared could even possibly mean. From there, I went to a couple different physics forums and science-based Reddits trying to confirm the formulas. They were next to no help, and I got straight up banned from the physics forum after posting my question. To this day, I still have no idea why, and if you're unfortunate enough to be one of those mods, I expect to see your Fox on Final Destination with no items by the end of this month. Anyway, I soon came across somebody else that was studying physics, and after an hour of confusing this poor professional, we finally came to a working formula. Now, this is probably only one of many ways to get this solution, and since I truly don't know any better, feel free to leave comments if there are any brainiacs that got better options out there. So, returning back to our basic question, what are we even looking for? Well, I'm curious as to how hard a person needs to hit someone to make them go flying like in our fighting games. I set up some other test numbers just so that we can have a basis on which everything else can be built. Let's make person B weigh 70 kilograms, since that's about the average male adult weight. Let's say that in 1 second, our unlucky friend reaches a max height of 1 meter in the air, and if they were to fall all the way to the bottom, he would go 3 meters from the starting point. However, instead of ever actually reaching the ground, when it reaches this invisible marker at half a meter in the air, our combo E gets hit back up so that he reaches all the way to the 1 meter mark again, and repeats every single time he reaches half a meter. I know that this is pretty low to the ground, all things considered, being only 3.2 and 1.6 feet in the air for those of us who know this character as M. Bison rather than Vega, but don't worry. we'll get there. Okay, quick pause. So originally, it was here where I walked through all the different equations and how it was supposed to be applied, but it was like 3 whole minutes and was more convoluted than the Mortal Kombat timeline. So instead of performing a fatality on the Zoomer attention span, hey, Akuma. Thank you. Here's all the math written out. All you need to know is that for the first hit, it takes 1,742.3 newtons, and with every follow-up strike being 1,261.4 newtons. Now, that probably means as much to you as quarter circles do to non-fighting game fans, so let's put this into some more reasonable terms. So the upper end of the average person punches with 1,112 newtons of force, with some sites saying that a skilled boxer can hit with 2,400 newtons of force or higher. So while you and I might not be able to do this, somebody on the caliber of a king of fighters might have a good shot. But remember back to our initial values. We were using some pretty low amounts to get them. A fighter isn't going to weigh just the average adult weight. Take Ryu, for example. If we were to just change the weight value to reflect his, this jumps up to 2,110 newtons for the first hit and 1,528 for follow-ups. And that's not even mentioning height. Take this Street Fighter juggling tutorial, where M. Bison has tossed this poor man above the health bar. Side note, this image kills me. What did bro do? Like, come on. Anyway, so M. Bison is 6 foot here and tosses him up about 2 of him into the air. With the weight of Luke being 198 pounds, not even looking into other things like the angle of the hit and keeping the rest of the material constant, M. Bison would have to hit him with over 10,000 newtons of force, which is little more than 6 times the force required for our first example.
I'm in danger!
Now, I wish the impossibility of this action was the least of our concerns. But unfortunately, we haven't even cracked into the most unsettling part. Speaking of crack, well, your bones. So bones aren't really given an exact amount of force needed to break them, as there are a variety of factors that affect it, like age, training, or even diet. But when we're working with averages, well, it seems like we're a lot more fragile than you'd think. Turns out the human ribs can only handle up to 3,300 newtons of force. So Luke here is in for a bit more than just a light bruising. If we're doing a standard Mortal Kombat style uppercut aimed at our combatant's dome, a bone that breaks at 2,300 newtons of force, and since their flight path is way higher than the 1 meter of our test example, oh Toasty man, you better bring them an ibuprofen. Think you're safe just because you're delivering the blow? Oh buddy, think again. Because your hand isn't safe either. While information on hand bone strength varies considerably, it's reasonable to assume that breaks start to happen between 500 and 1,500 newtons of force. That means even on our basic test example, you're shattering that hand. Now, we previously mentioned that boxers can punch with far larger numbers of newtons than seemingly the hand can, well, handle. And this is due to both the training they undergo to strengthen those hands, as well as wearing proper equipment to protect their fingers and wrists. So technically speaking, somebody like Balrog or this guy is actually doing a great job taking care of themselves as they fight. Good job, guys. So what about if you want to juggle your opponent with kicks instead? With the legs having far stronger bones, we're getting better chances with the breakpoint being about 2.5 to 4,000 newtons of force. Unfortunately for us, game juggling that involves kicks have our fighters flying pretty high up in the air, to the point where the added strength is really just a moot point. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Kicks really won't save you. Speaking of which, let's look at some Tekken examples for instance. Here we see Asuka perform a simple 2-hit juggle. Using the same math as before, Asuka's first kick, only using the height and weight, already sits at 2,158 newtons. If we consider that her angle used is closer to 80 degrees than 45, this results in a force that is closer to 3.2k newtons. And this is just for Steve Fox. She can perform the same move on Jack 8, who weighs an astonishing 400 kilograms. Yeah, you're gonna need more than the devil gene to save that leg. And there you have it, a little peek into some of the science behind one of gaming's most satisfying moves. I, of course, didn't mention everything on this topic, so I highly suggest taking a look at this one about the Mortal Kombat uppercut. It really goes into detail about the dispersion of weight and how that affects somebody going flying. Or how you're more likely to get your head taken off before flight's even an option. And I mean, I can't blame fighting game devs for leaning into the more comical aspects of the genre. I mean, imagine a totally realistic fighting game combo. Here, take a look. Oh, my hand! Oh, wait. Oh, sweet Jesus, I just need, come on. Wait, hold on. Son of a... Nah, screw it. KO. You win. I think? Thank you so much for watching this episode of Crystal Crown. As you can see, we have other videos here that you may be interested in. And I hope if you've reached it this far, you've thought about subscribing. Around me, you can see all the different social media you can follow us on, and we'll be excited to see you for the next one.